to, forgive Vince for what he did. If the Raptors didn't win a championship, would they feel the same way about Vince? I mean, they hung his jersey in the rafters a couple years ago. And I think the same could be said about Mitch. I mean, I don't think he's going to get, probably the ovation he believes, or most people believe he deserves when he comes back. I think it's going to be mean.
Well, I think it could
really
be
mean.
Pretty mean. I think it could be pretty. Now, Toronto's not wired that way generally. But so it's not going to be.
This is different, Hayes. I feel like this.
Yeah, about Coco, they'll be like boo in the first period. We hate you. And then by the third period, they'll be cheering every time he touches the puck.
It's possible. I don't know what to predict in terms of his return. Now, I'm curious how Marner's future factors into the way people feel about it too. Like if he goes to Vegas and wins a Conn Smythe and is scoring Game 7 OT winners, and that's not going to help him here. In a weird way.
People will say, where was that here?
Exactly.
Right.
And that won't matter to him. If he's doing it, he'll be like, I made the right choice. Like if you're Mitch Marner, all you're thinking is, I'm out. I'm as far away from Toronto as I can get. I want to go win and set myself up and move on with my life. And that's what Marner's going to be thinking, I'm sure. But, in Toronto, it's going to be much more complicated with him, and in large part because he's from here, and it just, And you're right. I think your sentiment off the top, Carlo, is very reasonable. Like, it's in the best interest to just rip the Band-Aid off and move.
Move on.
Move on. It's over. It's a different era on both sides of it. And let's see what the Leafs can do from here.
But, Hayes, back to what I said in the beginning. Doesn't it sting even more watching all the players that are signing today with their own teams and say to yourself, Florida just found a way to keep the band together.
Yeah, but
Carco,
Marner
why
didn't
should
want
this
to
surprise
stay.
you? Yeah, why should this surprise you? He was never like, oh, let's run it back. We're going to win again. Like, this was a completely – everybody knew this was coming.
So doesn't that say more about the relationship between Mitch and the team?
But that's specific to them, though, because, I think it would be a bigger issue here if Tavares was like, I'm out of here, and Knies was like, I'm begging for an offer sheet. Those two guys were dying to stay. Like this, Steven Lorentz, Lorentz, I don't know what kind of market he had, but he was dying to remain a Maple Leaf. This is very specific to Mitch. And again, another reason why I think Leaf fans, are going to be emotional about this, because he's from here, he grew up a Leaf fan, and now he's like, I got to get out. And by all accounts, he's been thinking that way for a while. Yeah. Like, no one's going to take lightly to that. Like, even if it's totally reasonable and justified, and he could break down exactly why it happens this way, Leaf fans are going to be like, really? You're dying to get out? It's like a weird mentality that Leaf fans didn't want him back, but they wanted the Leafs to tell him he can't come back.
Right.
They wanted him begging to stay, which is really kind of dark in a way. But I don't know. Yeah.
Well, from everything we know, the Leafs wanted him back. They tried to keep him here. It's
hard to do something, Coco, when if he's deciding that he's walking at right to free agency or close to it, then, hey, we'll trade you because we want to get a king's ransom for you. And, no, I don't want to go anywhere.
Right.
Not until I'm a free agent. Okay, well then, we'll let you. In the end, I think it's frustrating from that standpoint. From a business standpoint, if he knew he was moving on, then
why not any other time?
Right, like why not a king's ransom?
Why wasn't? Yeah.
Well,
again,
with this scenario, it almost feels like he has.
Right. Okay. So, what do you make of Nicholas Waugh coming here, and what Tree Living? I think has done a really good job. Like on the Tavares contract, I think on the Knies contract. They bring in Michelli, who I don't know a lot of, but they didn't pay much for him. He's a skilled guy. I think a lot of people are rightly pointing Shane Doan to him. Doan was in Arizona, obviously. Michelli's been there. Yeah. Doan probably liked him, I'm assuming, and said, go get him if you can. But, what do you make of where the Leafs are at now that we know that Marner's out, Waugh's in, and what else they may have to do, because there was a belief they were going to go all in on Brad Marchand, and he just re-signed with Florida an hour ago.
And looking different, and I think right now with Marner gone, they're forced to look different. And I've always been hesitant on Marner leaving, and not just Marner leaving because I didn't want change. I was always hesitant on watching a player like that leave for nothing. So I think with the Leafs finding a way for him to agree to a sign and trade, and getting back something. It's not the full value of what you would get from Marner, but it's something better than nothing. And I think Nicholas Waugh, I mean, you look at who he is as a player, what I like about what he brings to the Maple Leafs is he's a right-handed shot center iceman, something they haven't really had or played with the last couple of years. So you're losing a player that brings a lot to bringing in a player that fits a role and has a need to this team. And like, he's a guy that can score you 15 to 20 goals. He's got a defined role where he can play a heavy game, sort of like how Berube wants you to play. And he's going to find his role on this team wherever that may be. And I think that's the important thing is if you can't replace Marner with the same player, you got to find a way to replace Marner in other ways. And I think that's what they're doing with bringing in Waugh, is they bring him back something instead of losing him for nothing, and they're going to find a role for him in their bottom six.
Yeah, and then we wait to see what else they're going to do. You know, and that at this point, you know, Mangiapane's name's been connected to them. They've got some money, right? They've got some. Now they've spent some today. They brought in Waugh. He's making what, 3.9 or something like that. Michelli's making 3.5. Yeah. Like, they've used up some of their cap space on those two players.
And
but
isn't
those
that
are
something
forwards.
we've been wanting in this city with the way the core four has been assembled? Is like, hey, just find a way to spread it out a little more.
Well, the reality is, it's like Matthews and Willie are making big money. Those two combined are making $25 million. But then everyone else is very reasonable. You know, like Nye's making 7.5 now. That's a decent ticket, but I think he's worth that. I think he's around that number. And if he's going to play on the top line and first power play and he kills some penalties, then I think he can bring that value. But everything else is going to be pretty spread out. You know, Morgan Riley's the highest paid defenseman. Goalies aren't making much money.
You said spread out, Hayes. Isn't that the way Craig Berube wants his team to be, a 4-9 team?
Now, they got to be the right players.
Right.
You know, like I still think, and Tree Living's going to do more. There's going to be more.
As long as they get contributions, guys. It's one thing to be spread out, but if you're not getting production from anybody else, you're basically not even spread out.
Right,
Florida
exactly.
Panthers are spread out appropriately.
Yes, that's right.
They are.
I think he's going to use that money to continue to add to the depth of this team. That's the biggest thing, is you're looking for upgrades on the positions you already have filled. And, you know, I keep harping on it. I still think that even though you like your D and they're locked up, if there's an upgrade out there and you've got cap space, and Hayes, you keep bringing up, like, obviously you need currency to trade for those players.
Right.
You're not just waving your hand and saying, I've got cap space, bring them over here. But you've got to be creative to continue to add to your group in any facets necessary. So if there's a D that you covet out there that, you know, I think the Leafs, what are you going to do with Rasmus Anderson in Calgary, right? Like, that's a guy that's going to, now, I don't know if they have anything that they can pay for Rasmus Anderson, because he's going to get a king's ransom.
That's the problem, right?
To the Calgary Flames. But, you know, you got to get creative. Like, we didn't think all of a sudden Brandon Carlo just shows up. You know, like Brad